The Haunting of Blackwood Manor, a true horror story that will keep you awake. Deep in the heart of rural England lies the infamous Blackwood Manor, a place that has haunted the minds of many for over a century. This terrifying tale, rooted in real events, has been whispered from generation to generation, sending shivers down the spines of all who dare to listen. Reports of ghostly apparitions, disturbing whispers, and unexplained deaths make this one of the most chilling paranormal cases in history. What follows is the most comprehensive retelling of the Blackwood Manor haunting, documented with eyewitness accounts and historical records. Read on if you dare. The origins of Blackwood Manor. Built in 1865 by Lord Reginald Blackwood, the manor was meant to be a symbol of wealth and prestige. However, from the moment construction began, strange occurrences plagued the estate. Workers reported hearing voices calling their names from empty corridors. Tools went missing or were found in inexplicable places, and the foundation itself seemed to tremble at night. Many believed the land was cursed, but Lord Blackwood dismissed these claims as mere superstition. The tragic Blackwood family. Lord Reginald Blackwood lived in the mansion with his wife, Eleanor, and their 3 children, Edward, Margaret, and the youngest, Annabel. They were the picture of aristocratic perfection until tragedy struck. In 1871, Annabel, just 6 years old, was found drowned in the estate's fountain. Though the official story was an accident, servants whispered about strange laughter echoing in the hallways, and Annabel speaking of an imaginary friend before her death. The darkening presence. After Annabel's death, the once lively manor grew cold and unwelcoming. Eleanor Blackwood fell into despair, claiming she could hear her daughter's voice calling to her in the dead of night. Guests reported sudden chills, objects moving on their own, and a shadowy figure watching them from the corners of rooms. Lord Blackwood, a man of reason, refused to acknowledge these claims until the night Eleanor vanished. On November 2nd, 1873, Eleanor was seen entering the nursery where Annabel once played. When servants went to check on her hours later, she was gone. Her body was never found, but her cries were heard echoing through the halls for weeks after. Lord Blackwood, devastated and terrified, moved out of the house and left it abandoned. The paranormal investigations. Over the decades, Blackwood Manor became a hub for ghost hunters and paranormal researchers. In 1924, famed investigator Thomas Galloway spent 3 nights in the manor. His diary, later discovered in the abandoned house, revealed terrifying encounters. Night 1. Heard soft giggling of a child in the hallway. The temperature dropped suddenly. Night 2. Woke up to the sound of footsteps. Saw a shadow standing at the foot of the bed. When he turned on the lantern, it was gone. Night 3. The most horrifying night. The walls seemed to pulse, and whispers filled the air. At 3:15 a.m., he wrote his final entry. She is here, watching. I must leave before it's too late. He was never seen again. The modern haunting. In 2007, a group of documentary filmmakers set out to capture evidence of the haunting. What they recorded was beyond terrifying. Their footage, later released as the Blackwood tapes, included a chair moving across the room on its own, a woman's voice whispering, "Help me," a dark figure appearing in the background of multiple shots, its face resembling Eleanor Blackwood. One of the crew members, David Reynolds, went missing during filming. His body was never recovered, and his last recorded words were chilling. "She's real. She's in the mirror." Blackwood Manor remains one of the most terrifying unsolved hauntings in history. Though many skeptics attempt to explain the occurrences as psychological or environmental factors, those who have experienced the horrors firsthand know the truth. The spirits of the Blackwood family are trapped, their souls forever wandering the cursed halls. If you ever find yourself near the ruins of Blackwood Manor, listen closely. You might hear Annabel's laughter or Eleanor's desperate cries for help. Would you dare step inside? Whispers from the shadows. Real-life horror stories that defy explanation. The Cursed Doll of Mexico. In a small village near Mexico City, a woman named Isabella inherited an old porcelain doll from her grandmother. The doll, dressed in a tattered Victorian dress, had glassy blue eyes that seemed to follow anyone who looked at it. Shortly after bringing the doll home, Isabella began experiencing strange occurrences. Items would move on their own, whispers echoed in the night, and she often woke up to the doll in a different place than where she had left it. One night, she woke to the sensation of small hands gripping her neck. She screamed, and as the lights flicked on, the doll was sitting upright on her chest, its head slightly tilted. Terrified, Isabella sought the help of a local priest, who performed an exorcism on the doll. The activity ceased, but the priest warned her never to destroy it, for the spirit inside was trapped and could seek revenge if released. To this day, the doll remains locked in a glass case in Isabella's home, its eyes still watching. The silent room of the Ohio Asylum. The Athens Lunatic Asylum in Ohio, now abandoned, is infamous for its history of mistreatment and experimental procedures on patients. One of the most well-documented cases involves the Silent Room, a cell where a patient named Margaret was kept for years. Margaret was admitted after claiming she could see shadow people lurking around her home. Doctors dismissed her claims as delusions, and she was subjected to electroshock therapy. Over time, she stopped speaking entirely and was placed in solitary confinement. Years later, after the asylum shut down, urban explorers ventured inside and found Margaret's cell. Carved into the walls were hundreds of names and phrases like, "They are watching," and "I am not alone." Paranormal investigators recorded whispers and the unmistakable sound of sobbing coming from the empty cell. Some who visited claimed to feel an overwhelming sense of despair, as if something unseen was still lingering in that room. The vanishing family of Lake Superior. In 1973, the Dawson family took a trip to their lakeside cabin near Lake Superior. Their last known communication was a postcard sent to a relative saying, "The water is beautiful. We are at peace." Days later, when friends came to visit, they found the cabin abandoned. The table was set for dinner, and food was left half-eaten, but there was no sign of the Dawsons. A search ensued, but no bodies or clues were ever found. The strangest part? A fisherman reported seeing a woman and two children standing on the lake's edge just before dawn, staring blankly at the water before vanishing into thin air. Years later, new tenants moved into the cabin and reported hearing footsteps at night and seeing shadowy figures standing near the water. Some believe the Dawsons never left and are still trapped in some supernatural limbo. The Demon of Room 308. A hotel in New Orleans has one of the most terrifying unsolved hauntings in modern times. Room 308 has been the center of paranormal activity for decades. Staff members refuse to clean it alone, and guests frequently check out early, complaining of night terrors and an overwhelming sense of being watched. A former guest, Richard Lawson, experienced the worst of it. He was awakened in the middle of the night by the sound of scratching at the walls. Then, the temperature dropped drastically, and a guttural voice whispered in his ear, "You don't belong here." When he turned on the light, his belongings were thrown across the room. Terrified, he ran to the reception desk and demanded another room. When the staff checked the surveillance footage, they saw something chilling. The door to room 308 had opened and closed multiple times by itself, and a shadowy figure had been captured moving along the walls. These are just a few examples of real-life horror stories that continue to baffle skeptics and terrify those who dare to dig deeper. Are they mere coincidences, tricks of the mind, or evidence of something beyond our understanding? The next time you hear a whisper when no one is around, or see something move out of the corner of your eye, remember, sometimes the scariest stories are the ones that are true.